welcome to the bi-weekly meeting podcast for the OWASP Generative AI Security Project. If you'd like to stay up to date with our project, please click subscribe. And if you enjoy the content or have any questions, please feel free to comment and share. Now, on to our meeting.
How's everybody doing this fine day?
Good.
Fantastic. Oh, good.
Hey, while we're just gathering, anybody, is this your first call with the group? If it is, say hi real quick. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Isaiah Adonu. It's my first time. I've been curious about this project, wanted to learn a bit more about it and potentially join, see if I could contribute to it.
Welcome. Anybody else? All right, awesome. Well, let's get into it. It's a big week leading up to RSA, like starting Sunday for some of us, Monday for others, and then coming up to our big thing on Wednesday. So busy. So let's just jump right in and let's get to it. So everybody, welcome to the bi-weekly meeting of, I was about to say the OWASP Top 10 for large language models, but instead I will say for the OWASP GenAI Security Project. I'm glad to have you all here. And we're just going to dive into it. I did see that we have some slides here. And as always, there's late additions. So we'll get into the lead reports. Hey, Scott, I've just noticed we need to fix your name spelling in the bottom corner of the template. You're Scort.
I'm Scort on this template. Oh, that's good. I probably fixed it and you just grabbed the wrong template. No, I'm just
kidding. Probably me.
It's your Scottish accent.
And you are forever Scort now.
Awesome. Perfect. This one's different. It's just the header. So we'll fix that header slide.
And then your online version is eScort.
That's right. Exactly. I answered a hey. So that's just fine. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started here. So this one I think is mine also. So We're making some progress on the solutions landscape. So for Q2, as you know, we've been doing these every quarter is our plan. And so as we have RSA coming up, guess what? We're trying to close out the Q2. So that is scheduled for the 28th, so Monday. We'll get that out. So there's some key updates to it. As always, the directory of solutions will be updated, as well as when we first released the document, we started to outline some of the key application patterns, because that helps us kind of look at where the types of solutions fit. And so we've got updates to those application patterns that kind of reflect the changes that we've seen. Obviously, things like agentic patterns that are starting to solidify a bit more in CP and A2A as protocols are defining some new areas that we need to kind of look at from a security perspective. We'll have some updates on the LLM and GenAI kind of ops process. So we'll also be looking at some of the emerging security solutions. We've had things like the LLM firewalls, or gateways, I should say, that were very early entries. And so we're looking at where those have been deployed and kind of how those are evolving, as well as some new areas that are evolving in terms of new categories of solutions in the agentic space, as well as in the data areas as well. So those will be called out. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're expanding our cheat sheets to support both a slice on the landscape for red teaming solutions. So we're getting to a point where we're getting quite a few different solutions mapped against a larger set of security controls and part of the life cycle that we have today. So to make it easier to consume, we're also slicing these down into both the red teaming profile as well as an agentic security one. So that'll help us as we continue to see the growth here, which has been tremendous. We have somewhere around 120 solutions now in our solutions catalog that have been submitted by different companies and organizations. So we have, it continues to grow at a pretty breakneck pace. And I'll cover some of the growth and some of the changes actually when we get to our session at RSA. I only have 30 minutes, so it'll be tight, but we'll get through as much as we can in that time. So 428. We're also, as Steve mentioned, got a lot of stuff happening at RSA. So right now we've got 3 major events We have on the Wednesday is basically Gen AI Security Day. So starting with the seminar, starting at 8:30, shifting quickly, go grab a quick bite of lunch on your walk over to the Agentic Security Open Workshop over at the Spur, which is just a block away, not even a block away from Moscone. So it's an easy walk for those people who've been there. And if you are not attending RSA, no worries, come on down anyway. It's open to everyone. The Security Summit at RSA is open to any pass holder, any pass holder for RSA. If you have like a expo pass, good enough. And there's plenty of codes out there for free expo passes, so I would suggest do a quick Google, and you might find one. And then lastly, join us for a little party in the evening. So getting together, we've got a great venue still at the Spur. We're going to continue, and we'll have food and drinks and music, and we'll get some great networking together. And so it's a full day if you want to get down on some AI security stuff.
I will say, Scott and I continue to debate this. Scott, being the consummate professional, calls it the community networking event. I call it the Gen AI security party of the century. It's going to be its last. And come down, invite your friends, drag them down there. We got a lot of space. And I want to have this be elbow to elbow to the point where the fire marshal is blockading the doors and threatening to arrest Scott. So everybody, please come down.
Yep, we've got over 200 people now registered for the event. But come on down. We've always got space. People be moving in and out. We just want to get a chance for you to meet the kind of the project leaders and initiative leaders, and also just connect up with us as a community. So, yes, party of the century is a good way to characterize it. But that's the marketing side of it. So
yeah, and if anybody hasn't been to this location, this is a well-known, sort of San Francisco venue. It's top-notch. You got to come down. It's going to be awesome.
Party of the century is how the videos refer to it. Just so we're
Thank
clear.
you, Aubrey. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, we had some help on getting some of our naming together. So I like to respect our friends also who have been helping us, some of our sponsors on that. So we've got a good balance, but yeah, it is done to be a party. The other thing that's really exciting is we are officially going to be live streaming the Agentic Security Workshop. So if you can't make it to RSA, you can still have fun with us and learn some stuff. So we're going to have, this is going to be kicking off at 2 p.m. The entire event will be live streamed. The link is there for the website where you can add it to your calendar and you can go ahead and join. The countdown here obviously is frozen, but because it's a slide, but the countdown on the website continues to run. So just a few days away, and you can just link in and join us. This will be from 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So wherever you are, just make sure you know it's Pacific Standard Time, or make sure you add it to your calendar. We're also going to have some fun stuff there too. So not that learning stuff is fun and meeting folks isn't fun. We also are going to be at the Agentic Workshop, going to introduce our Agentic Security Hall of Fame. Every Hall of Fame winner will get a plaque. So this is the plaque you will get. And so we'll be announcing those winners there at the event.
Awesome.
And then if you come to the networking event, here's another reason. We've got some bling for your laptop. So you can come on down and pick from a variety of stickers to put on. We've got our new mascot that you see kind of floating around as part of our logos and as part of our Agentic Hall of Fame. We also have one of those stickers is only available in San Francisco. So we have an event-only specific sticker. So, and we're going to be doing that for all of the events that we do. So you have to collect them if you're a collector. I don't know, maybe. So we're going to have a little bit of fun in addition. So come on down. All right, switching gears to back to operations and outreach, what we're doing from a community perspective. So one of the things we've been doing is getting more requests for webinars and working with Aubrey to make sure that we can help him also on podcast requests. So we've put together some updated process on this. Again, any of these webinars or podcasts that we're looking at, we are working on kind of monthly themes. But if you have a topic you want to come in and talk about, we've got some forms that you can go ahead and submit them. One of the things is that we are focused on things that are not product specific. So even with our sponsors, we want to talk about the technology, we want to talk about the challenges, we want to have those conversations. It's not a place for promoting products, it's a place for exchanging ideas and educating. So we now have these forms, use these, and we'll be mapping these to our planned themes. And these can be either single webinars, it can be panels. And for Aubrey, they can be a different folks. Aubrey, I don't know if you want to talk to kind of what you're looking for in your podcast.
Sure. The things that we really want to see are, well, that the users really want to see are technical, is technical content. So the videos that I've done, especially on, say, red teaming techniques, or the one video that I had that kind of came up towards the hackathon, those all did really well as far as views are concerned. So if you have, something that's kind of highly technical that has to do with our project, that is what's being consumed. And I got to say, the podcast continues to light it up on Spotify. I mean, it's just growing. I think we've had 83 new subscribers in the past month.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. That's huge for a podcast, at least a technical podcast.
Yeah, especially today with the breadth of podcasts that are out there, just getting that kind of pickup is phenomenal.
You bet.
We now refer to Aubrey as the Joe Rogan of the AI space.
Okay.
Ha!
It's because
There
I
we
was
go.
on the Man Show.
Yes.
True.
Oh, I see. Yes. Well, there you go. There you go. So, so use these forms. The links are in the slides. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and so we can get these rolling. And we do already have a couple coming up, so we'll get those out as well. We are continuing to work on how we scale as an organization. So we have brought on board our go-to-marketers as our contractor to help us take on our a web focus. So they are going to become sort of the primary point of contact as we start to do web updates. They're already working right now. I have them working right now on initial focus on our SEO and design optimization for the website. And then they'll be taking on some of the workflow processes. So, or once we get past RSA, we'll have some new ways for people to get updates to websites and to do changes. I'll still be overseeing it, but they'll be our primary point for getting things updated and done. Which should help us on timing and a bunch of other stuff too. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware that is in play right now.
All right. Is this John from here on?
I will have the slides, so don't
It
worry.
looks like John.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So a few things have happened the last couple of weeks that highlighted some of the amazing energy we have, and also some questions about how do we scale consistently and we don't create, contradicting piece of work. So we're releasing, yesterday we spent all day in getting together the multi-agentic system threat modeling, which applies Maestro. And the intent was, to take the document we've released, take those threats and show people how to do threat modeling. That sounds all very good, but in practice, trying to consolidate to different documents and to particularly if it involves prior work, because Maestro, was something that was Ken creating with CSA. That was an interesting challenge for us, but we've learned our lessons, and I think will help us move forward with all the other documents. Something similar happens, and there is a blog out there today with MCP and A2A. All those things happen around us with agentic stuff so fast that cannot wait for us to finish our documents. So all of a sudden, two of the co-leads for the secure agentic app workstream, they published a fabulous paper on Archive X, and that became really viral. And that is also overlapping with the work that we're doing for the secure agentic app. So what we're trying to do now is to encourage that um, rapid response that then makes it into the part of work we do with a new work stream where we have kind of transparency, we discuss what we're doing, so people can write their own things, but they don't necessarily overlap or contradict the things that we're working on. And the final one, which I've forgotten G there, is the next document to come out of that is that part of life cycle. I'm very big fan of structuring our work, not just kind of randomly, oh, I thought of something clever, let's publish it. But as part of the kind of life cycle our audience will follow. So the threat modeling, the threats and mitigations, we're keeping you up to date with all the new stuff and what we think there with this rapid response workstream, or we'll find a better name rather than that. And then the next one is a really, really good document the guy's done on what does it mean, again, taking that whole threat mitigations that we published, what does it mean in terms of designing Agentic AI? What does it mean in terms of developer guidelines and assuring and deploying? And that we had the internal reviews, we talked about all those things. So the guys will do some public review at the Agentic Security Open Workshop, which is, I'm so thrilled and excited about that. I cannot contain it. And then come back and do the usual stuff, which is, resume at the group level, go into a distinguished expert and release it. And that will complete. Then the only thing that's left for us is that landscape. And Scott, we're kind of still in conversations of how do we combine it with the landscape that you have, and then complete the life cycle. And then, let's get together and say, hey, do we keep refreshing things? Is there something else we need to do? But yeah, kind of an amazing journey. It just shows the challenges of scaling things, but really enjoyable. So that's me.
Right. Looking forward to all of that. Sandy, maybe?
Yep, this is me. So you guys, a couple of people noticed that I pushed to get a draft release of the Compass before RSA. I've got that ready to go. I posted about it on LinkedIn, and that is a link to a feedback forum. So this is the roadmap I've created. Target release for July 1st, review and incorporate all feedback, provide a playbook. So how do you walk through use cases? How do you evaluate, you have a mitigation, how do you come up with your scoring and things like that? What are the different scenarios? So that's the plan.
So Sandy, before we move on from this, you want to just back up for a second and spend a couple minutes on what is this document? Why are you building it? Just so everybody's aware, because this is a new one for some people.
Yeah, it's from discussions with you and Scott, which was, when we released the LLM governance and security checklist, it was really just kind of me pulling together as a CISO, how would I prepare my organization? Like, what should I be thinking about? How do I build a strategy around it? And so this is really what I did was I just operationalized it. I took all of what I put into that document and then put it into a spreadsheet with examples. And so things like I went through and I took all of the OWASP top 10 and the Agentic top 15 and mapped it to known CV vulnerabilities and applied a scoring system to it. So now somebody can just go in and say, okay, we're using this, how would I determine what should I be looking for? How do I start mitigating this? How do I start patching it? How severe is this vulnerability? So, and things like your test cases, Jason and I have talked about this. Everyone says, oh, you need to red team. Well, how do you go about doing that? How do you start building out those specific use cases to know that you're attacking the model, and if it's a financial chatbot, digital assistants, you want to make sure it's not giving out medical advice or it's not eliminating someone, but actually the nuances, it's trying to take all of our guidance that we give and actually giving people a tactical way to start deploying and using that in their environment. So it's both it's a methodology and a tool. So Yeah, and I would be happy. I mean, part of the plan is to create, a playbook. I was calling it a run book. It's really a playbook. Like, how do you actually use this tool and incorporate it into your organization? How do you start trying to organize your mind around what you should be thinking about? And then probably, some videos on helping people use it. So.
Yeah, and one of the things we're starting to do is I hadn't talked about yet is that we're getting a learning system in place so that we can create learning videos. So even with questions and answers. So the foundation has contracted with a company to do some of that, and we're just getting access to that. So that'll be a great tool for us to use both to get some initial videos out, but then also to create some learning paths for people. So, Sandy, as we get further down the path and get this rolled out, we'll be able to create some learning paths for folks to come in and not only just kind of get your wisdom and such from the video, but also get an opportunity to, try it out, take some tests, that sort of thing, get some quizzes, so they feel like they're comfortable and competent with the tooling.
Yeah, some of the interesting things that, that as I was looking at all the vulnerabilities and trying to massage the data so I could prioritize it and put it into the workbook, creating service accounts, that's critical. Like supply chain, all of our familiar block and tackling is really becomes evident. So, as a security team, you want to identify, okay, what if this is just normal? Hey, we need to make sure that we're doing our static code analysis, we're deploying this correctly, we're making sure that it only has the access that it should have access, the data it should have access to. And then there's the nuance of LLM, and agentic, where you're actually trusting it. Well, how how are you going to strategically test that and be able to, even like your alerts, like what when for my presentation that I'm doing at RSA, really compare it to, trying what are those monitors and dials in your nuclear power plant that you want to make sure that if they go into the red, but you want to have a plan before it goes into the red. Like, how long can it be in the red? When do you start, what's your plan if you need to, uh, you know, sound the sirens or, do a backup? Like, when do you pull the plug? Like, having all of that thought out before you have an incident.
Very cool. Hey, Sandy, I think, the way you describe this is going to be one of the most important documents that we publish because it really makes this actionable. I'll give you one thing to chew on, which is we should really think about how we title this document. And
Okay.
I think one of the things we've been fortuitous about is we've always the document we've had really good document titling either by accident or by design. The OWASP top 10, that was a freebie that we stole, but
Yeah.
the agentic thing was hot because agents were hot. Red teaming was hot because red teaming was hot. This one, the advice I give people a lot when you're developing products is think about the why you're doing, not the what. And this one's titled as a what? It's a combined operational maturity and process advertisational strategy scoring guide. But I don't know if people are getting out of bed in the morning thinking I need one of those. But your initial document, like a CISO's checklist, like every CISO is like, I love checklists. Find me one of those. So think about how we come up with a title that encapsulates the why somebody wants this document, and then building out what you described here will get great coverage with it. So just something for you to think about.
Well, and I guess the compass, it really comes from my, as I think about, you remember the AI threat map that I put together. I think the challenge that people have is the navigating. It's not binary, it's degrees. So there's benefits of using AI, but it increases your attack surface. So, like, how do I find that what's that acceptable driving lane where I'm making the best possible decision?
Hey, Sandy,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I totally get what you're saying because we're going through this as well. I think I would love to see this be called something like a guide to adversarial resistant AI. right? Something about adversarial resist. To the point he was making about like, how do I know I need this, right? Because I think when you talk about all the elements in here, about red teaming, about attack surface, about it being degrees, like what you're really like communicating is what is the processes, how do you get to a point of maturity that you're not just implementing these things or just implementing checkboxes, you are really building something for the
Right.
purpose of being
Strategic.
adversarially resistant. And I think
You're
that's powerful.
Yeah, and I think
you're
the other thing
you're
to
spot on.
consider,
Yeah.
the other thing to consider always when we do these, and this is, I've talked with John about this too as well, is like making sure that we're thinking about who our audience, primary
Right.
audience, secondary audience is for the content. So, because that can help guide you in terms of the naming. And also, as we started to see with the solutions landscape and other pieces, creating derivative content that can help distill for certain audiences can be great pointers back to and another way to address the why. So look at who you are, who you're targeting, and then figure out what the why is for them.
So I would encourage everyone, it's great feedback. I mean, it makes sense to in my head because and I want to say thank you to Jason Ross. I mean, when I first had the idea for this, it was because I was asked to teach in Sanders Learn AI red teaming class. And so I really was tunnel vision on that it was a tool. Like I wanted to help red teamers know how to communicate the vulnerabilities they found. But when we were at Sands, he and I had some really good conversation about it. And of course, Krishna and Rock have been, part of the challenge has been I had this idea and everyone wanted to help me and it was they were waiting on me to try to get it out of my head. So I think this is out of my head now and now waiting for feedback. So I have that feedback. Like, can I share something really fast?
Hold on a second.
Scott?
So I need to find the button. There we go. Go for it.
Oh,
John, we see you got your hand up, so we'll get you.
right here. So here's what I thought was really interesting. So when you start mapping these, to the LM top 10 and the agentic, you start to see patterns in here of, okay, even if you're not using any of these tools, you as a cybersecurity team could go through and start saying, oh, privilege compromise, comes up over and over and over again. It's like, oh, that's got to be priority number one. So being able to go in, and one of the things that I think it was Rock and I were talking about, which is, okay, do you really want to burden yourself with trying to keep this up to date? And until again, a future version, maybe we could automate it. There is an API. We all know the CVE database is kind of in a weird place, and there's actually an OWASP initiative about it. But here's the other thing that I think about is you guys are familiar with the EPSS scoring. I'll stop sharing. Which if you look at why the EPSS scoring came about from first, it was because for all of the vulnerabilities, only about 6% of those have been exploited. So then you go, okay, I'm patching, I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm trying to make sure I don't have these for 6%. Like, how do I narrow that effort so that I'm focusing on the things that are really a threat to my organization? John?
I think, I've given you my feedback before. I will do it again. I think the checklist, I have had, we to practice AI security in large organizations day in, day out. So the checklist is the most fantastic tool to open the conversation. And I think, I will carry on using it, even if it doesn't get updated, because it's a classic. So it has to be there.
Okay. Well,
I think, it's kind of back to Scott's point about audiences and how does it work in real life practice. I find that an invaluable tool. It doesn't have to be the super clever thing. It's something that allows you to start the conversation with really stressed out cyber teams that think, my goodness, I have all these things to do and now I have to do AI security. So that's a very nice way to start the conversation. I think what you're doing now is on steroids. And for me, it's kind of like an adversarial risk navigator, an adversarial risk management tool that allows me to go through and manage risk throughout the life cycle, not just at the beginning. And in fact, so that you know, the code of practice for the UK where I wrote the implementation guide is now becoming an ETSI standard, and we're discussing of how we're rolling it out and kind of mapping tools so that I will definitely adopt whatever we call the compass, but I do like that. I wouldn't go Rachel adversarial resistant and everything. That makes promises, but definitely,
But
adversarial.
by the way, I think actually the compass is a cool name for the tool. And I'll make this point once and then we'll move on. But the question is, what do you call the document? Because if you don't name the document correctly, no one will open the document and find the tool. And that's my point about the why rather than the what. All of our other documents happen to be basically named for whys. Like, I'm building an agent, I need to do security. Okay, I know why I'm here. I know why I've heard I need to do red teaming. I'm here because I have a why. Think about describing the why of your document that doesn't include anything about what's in it. Describe the why in a sentence. Why does somebody need this? The title for the document will fall out of it.
Okay. Well, and I mean, excellent feedback, John, Steve. Maybe the path forward is rewriting. I've talked about converting, the Center of Excellence document. There is some crossover. So I thought, well, I don't want to create, I don't, is there value in overlap? Maybe you can't have too many. Maybe we just maybe there's different tools for different audiences. So maybe it's a rewrite of the checklist and then because the long vision is to use the MITRE tools and other OWASP tools, which is what I reference in the checklist. So tons of great ideas. And again, that's why we publish this, and that's why I wanted to get it out for everyone to be able to give feedback. I just wanted to point this out really quick. This is, for me, trying to simplify things. We have so much documentation out there, and I thought, okay, here I am. I know what I'm trying to do. I've got it organized, in my spreadsheet here. How do I start going out, figuring out what preventative controls and detective controls I need for each of the OWASP top 10? Again, maybe I just created a tool that, I needed, but it's saying, how do I, instead of having reams of documents, how do I actually turn this into a tool that I can start using to analyze the problem I'm trying to solve and then go through and do that? So again,
I think
go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, one of the ways that we talked about this in the past is really kind of as a continuum, because you have the checklist, which gives you sort of that bite-sized kind of approach to it. You have the compass, which helps you action that. But then you have the Center of Excellence document, which gives you kind of the where you want to get to in the future, sort of that continuum of engagement.
Right, and coordinating everything.
Yeah,
and
so I think
that was the purpose.
Yeah, so I think those three things can kind of live together as sort of where are you in your journey as a CISO coming in to figure out what am I doing for my organization. The checklist gives me something that I can start to think about things in a new way and take some action. The compass allows me to take that and action it, and that COE, as we evolve it, continues to give me where I want to get to in the future, kind of where the future goal should be. So, and I know John and I have talked about this a few times because he's been using some of these in practice. And so that's kind of my view. I think these are sort of, they support and build upon each other for continuing depending upon where someone is in their cycle.
Yeah. So just going back to my initial comment, Sandy, it was nothing about the actual tool that you're building. it's about how do we explain to people why they want it. And I think, it's advice that I give product teams all the time, which is our natural inclination as technologists is to explain what we built. The problem is you don't get permission to explain what you've built until you've captured people's attention. And you have to do that with who it's for and why they want it. So my just concrete suggestion for you is it has to be one sentence each. And I suggest minimal punctuation in the sentence. Who's it for? Why do they want it? When you define those two things, that will guide you some on how you want to refine and shape the contents of the document. That will also make it trivially easy for Scott to write the press release about it, to get people interested in it. That will make it easy for people to discover it when they go to search, all of these things. So if you can just define, and that was the wonderful thing about the CISO checklist, however you landed on that name. This is for CISOs who want a basic checklist on how to start to secure their environments. It was just self-evident right in the title. If you can figure
Yeah.
out that equivalent for this, that may become the title of the document. The tool could still be called the compass. But when we sort of title the document, think who's it for? Why do you want it? If we can get those two sentences, I think that'll give you a lot of clarity in your own head about like, oh, this is how I want to shape this. This is how I want to set it up. It'll give everyone clarity for where it sits in our universe and make it really easy for people to decide they want to pick up that document.
Yeah, just
Jason and I talked a lot about this. I'm sorry to interrupt, just because like who is it for? And um, I should, the initial driver for me was, and Rachel, this is, kind of in your lane too, which is when I speak with threat intelligence teams or red teams and they come to me with a vulnerability, I need context. Like, is this a 5 alarm fire or is this a 1 alarm fire? Like, help me with it. And so there's a tab that I created, specifically with it's a template really for a red teamer, to be able to say, okay, I found this vulnerability, but you know, if I look at the impact scenario, it's a non, it's a no fix. It's not, it fixing it would introduce friction and cost, and impact is negligible. So it's a no fix. Like, we found it, but nobody cares. And so, when I saw it as a tool, a coordination tool. So I saw it for everyone. Like, it was kind of that compass, that navigation point that everyone can pull from, what the threat intelligence team is doing. They're using CWEs, they're using CVEs and saying, okay, this is what an attacker is doing. Okay, like, how do I orchestrate that into my strategy?
So Sandy, I'll just give you some feedback.
Yeah.
What you described there is nothing like everyone. That was such a specific description of an audience. Make that a sentence. And that's super hard. I'm not saying that's easy, but that's your challenge. If you can do that, you will nail this. But
Okay.
if we all need to swim around in 2-minute descriptions of who it's for,
Yep.
you won't get an audience for it. And that's going to be the challenge. So I think we
Okay.
need to nail that descriptor, that audience. And again, I think that'll really focus how you want to hone the tool.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
let me
Okay.
just also, just for my clarification. So right now, what I think as far as documents, because we're talking about documents and tools, and so I just want to kind of align those. So right now, so from my understanding, we have, from a document perspective, we have the checklist, we have the COE, and then what you're doing, Sandy, right now is building the tool, which is the compass. And then you're going to build some
Do a
documents,
playbook.
a
Yeah.
playbook on how to apply the compass. So,
Right. What
so
was what I thought would make sense.
Yeah, well, maybe
yeah,
that's the key then, is that document, who is it for and why do they need it?
Okay.
That's the piece that we
No,
want to
it's
nail down, because I think right now it's going to be really hard for people to know to go pick this up.
Okay, and excellent feedback. And we'll continue. I think we'll continue to have great discussions around it. Here's I'll just share kind of my perspective is everybody has there's I mean just volumes of documents out there. Everything from and but there's nothing, it's very light on here's what you actually do. Here's how you actually do it. It's why the use case document, all of those types of that we've talked about in the red teaming group that I saw value in because someone will come out and say, make sure you do governance. Okay, how? Like, what does that mean? How do I actually start applying that? How do I start building out that program? And so that's what I was trying to solve for was, okay, there's tons of great guidance out there. How do I actually start doing it?
Yeah, and I think some of this is going to be when you do the run book is going to be also building like you talked about like videos and content so people can understand how to use this. And I think that's going to be an important part.
Well, I think that's some of those things are the things you distill out into your why. As you started, you've used a lot of these terms like this is for the real practitioners, this is for the hands-on people, this is the concrete tool. Like distill down around some of those ideas, and that will, again, you don't have to explain the whole thing in those 2 sentences. This isn't the what. It's not what it is, it's why is it? Who's it for? Why do they need it? If you can nail those 2 without describing anything about what it is, you're 90% of the way there. You have gained permission to explain the rest of it. But if you can't get those things down, those 2 things into 2 sentences, you won't get the permission to get the tool in front of people.
Okay. No, that's excellent feedback.
And they just touched on this, kind of all the feedback is support, regardless of the naming and all. That's a fantastic.
Yeah.
So very, very proud. If I'm going to take this and positioning at the heart of adopting government guidelines, it shows how good that piece of work is. So well done. I think something that I might do. I'll propose an initiative that might help is to create a very thin life cycle document that maps documents so that people know at each stage which to use, which is what we did basically. So, but yeah, I'll take it offline and propose as an initiative. But great stuff there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at also kind of how that feeds into sort of our roadmap and tie those kind of things together so that we have both the usage guide, which is kind of what you're talking about, which documents to use at what different stages, and then we can wrap that into our roadmap as well.
Yeah, I think Sandy, what you're hearing here is a ton of support for what you're doing, and we're all just bouncing off. This is your real-time review that you're getting on the highest level, kind of outside of this piece, and it's the part that's hardest to do. And let me put a comment in your spreadsheet. It's, I think this is what some of us are seeing is like, how do we distill this? How do we get the attention to it so that people can use it?
Yeah. No, that's why it's out there. And again, I appreciate, I have to say, Jason was so wonderful and we talked and he was so good at kind of getting me course corrected. And Krishna, honestly, Krishna is the one, he kept pushing me saying, hey, I think you've got something here. You just, keep working on it. So appreciate the team and everyone's support.
Awesome. All right, I think that is the end of the slides for today. So does anybody else have a topic that they wanted to cover out? We got a few minutes left.
I can make some comments on what we're doing with the other standards groups, like at least with COSI. So I know John has been working with a lot of the folks. We're also working together with COSI. They've offered us to have a seat on their technical board. So we are working through some of the details on that, and hopefully we'll have some more details on that in the next week or so. We're also finalizing a joint promotion partnership with a media company. That's the Cyber Risk Alliance, which will also help us to get our word out, and will be part of helping us to host our own AI security summit in the coming months.
Awesome. So, hey, just to loop back to where we started, RSA coming this week. I know several of you will be there, so I will look forward to seeing you at our events on Wednesday. If anybody wants to come out on Monday afternoon, I do have a session. It's a lot different than the session I did last year with Gavin, which was, a pure OWASP top 10 for LLM session. This one, it's got a pithy title about the machines are learning, but are we? But I actually touch on a lot more of things like the adversarial uses for AI and some of the things Rachel and others have been talking about. And I do plug some of those documents. So it's really more about the AI arms race and the bad guys and the good guys. So it's a fun little topic. So I'd love to see any of you there if anybody wants to come out.
Yeah, and then I've also got a session with the Linux Foundation co-leads and as well as the COSI guys, as we're going to be talking about open source collaboration and how open source communities are needing to lead the way in AI security. We've already seen the stuff with MITRE and CVE. You mentioned that earlier. There's a lot of disruption that's happening, and one of the things that communities like ours can do is we can help normalize that disruption for organizations and make it easier for them to start to adopt things. Especially, we can also help with the noise out in the system. So as you mentioned, people are publishing lots of things about do governance. Well, what does that really mean? Is any of that peer reviewed? Has anybody looked at it but them? And so there's a huge amount of noise and feedback out in the community for people to do things, but the opportunity to do things that are peer reviewed, that people have looked at, that have some semblance of direction and tools that are practical, or something that where the communities can help kind of normalize that in a bit. And as you mentioned, Sandy, the OWASP overall is looking at the CWE issues. So there's a letter that putting out as part of the overall OWASP project specifically around that. So, but we'll be talking about some of that stuff in the session on Tuesday. It's at 2:45. And so if you have a full conference pass, that's the only downside. You need to have a full conference pass for both my session and I think also for Steve's. Come on down. I think it'll be a good conversation.
All right, everybody. Hey, and to the new people, any of you who chimed in on the convo and introduced yourself there, go hop over on the Slack channel, make sure everybody knows you're there. Obviously, you can see we got a lot of projects in flight. We got Sandy's project. We got John's Agentic project, which is now spawning its own multiple documents. So it's like we've gone from having child projects to grandchild projects at this point. That's how fast this is moving. There is so many places for anybody to get involved if you're interested. So don't be shy. Just jump in, raise your hand, and go get involved. See y'all soon.
Thanks for checking out our bi-weekly meeting podcast. If you'd like to stay up to date on all the latest news for the OWASP Generative AI Security Project, please click subscribe. And of course, we'd appreciate it if you'd share with a friend to grow our community. We'll see you in 2 weeks.